So my progress over the last few days has been trying to get this motor mount created so that I can send that to my fabricator and say, make me this. So as you can see, it's made of multiple parts, but wherever there are bolts, he would just weld it. It's effectively 1-inch angle iron and 1-inch tube. And then for this to sit on is the model of the frame. That is, the frame is interesting, 11 3/4 inches wide, but these bolt patterns, one is like 95 millimeters and the other is 96 millimeters, so they are off just a smidgen. Certainly that these could be made, the holes could be made wider to adjust for that. That's probably an issue in the manufacturing process, but that's about to be, I want to make one minor tweak to it, and then that'll be mailed to my guy in Texas to say, please make this before Matt shows up with his pipe clamp. So that's the progress that that I've made. I've also gotten another Wi-Fi, Mophie Wi-Fi device. So this is a LTE modem and router, and so that's what would actually drive the or provide Wi-Fi in the field. And so,
does that go on your robot?
In my thinking, no. This goes in the base station that's stationary and blasts Wi-Fi in the field. The Wi-Fi on the rover is picked up by an antenna that's connected to the ARPA.
Okay.
And so anything that needs Wi-Fi or connectivity on the rover would have an antenna that's, you know, talking back to this router.
That's your mobile Wi-Fi hotspot.
Right. So if it covers, I mean, let's just, for chuckle's sake, say that it covers 1,000 feet. Every time you want to go to a different field that's bigger than 1,000 feet from the base station, you've got to move to another position, or move the base station to another position. That was my thinking. Subject to change, but that's...
You know those Ubiquiti bullets that we got about 6 miles.
Yeah, you've mentioned those.
6 dBi antenna.
So that would be an add-on, if you will, to this. At the moment, this has an AT&T SIM card in it. Goes in right there. And hopefully is grandfathered into an unlimited plan, so I don't have to worry about data usage. So that's the activity in the last few days, in addition to driving to Louisville last weekend, so that put a little bit of a damper in the time spent. So this weekend we'll be getting back to the GPS, trying to get that organized, and get the rover out into the yard. The weather is As long as it's not raining, I can do that. And at the moment, I think we're going to be good.
Are your two lawnmowers identical?
No, they're similar but not identical. The frame size is going to be identical. One is electronic fuel injection. One in Pittsburgh is electronic fuel injection. The one in Texas is gravity fed. So there'll be a difference there.
But making those pieces that you're having fabricated, you think those are going to fit? If they fit on one, they'll fit on both. Is your intention?
That is my intention. And then when we get you a Cub Cadet, and when Matt gets his second and third one, we'll have a
Horde.
A frame that can be used over and over again. So that's what's going on with me. Anything in your world, Jeff?
I got a table made to. I was going to put my robot on top of it, and then I said my robot's too heavy, so I decided leave it on the floor and put jack stands under it. So that's where it's at the moment. And I guess
how much does it weigh?
Too much. I don't know. It's around 75 pounds maybe, and it's awkward enough to be able to pick it up and throw it up on the table. It gets trying to do that after several times. And one of my biggest problems is trying to get stuff reorganized where I can get something done, because I thought, well, I'll just fire up the robot and change my low-level code for the microcontroller board. And I realized, well, the code for that was on my computer at work, or my development system was on that computer at work. And I knew that's where it was. So I backed up all the code, but now I got to find another computer to put that on. And it might run under Linux. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Otherwise, I've got an old Windows laptop around somewhere. I'm going to have to decide what to do for Windows laptop, because I don't have one anymore. So I'll have to look into that. So that's yet another thing I'll have to figure out.
All the technology challenges. Matt, anything going on in your world?
I'm working on a bag file with the lawn tractor, but so I have been driving the lawn tractor through Ross, not a low-level controller like Jeff's robot, but I picked up this USB wireless game controller out of the Pi Hut, and so so I broke my little Raspberry Pi that I was using to feed in my game controller that's wired to drive the robot around. So may upgrade to like a Bluetooth controller like this, so I could just come to the robot and I don't have to have external computer or anything like that. I can just boot it up and drive around.
That'd be awesome.
Are you running that Ubiquiti image on your robot or on your tractor?
I am.
Well, look into that and see if that will directly connect to it the way it is right now. That's the problem that Walter One was having with the serial port, because they've apparently have the Bluetooth set up to talk to an external USB joystick. So it could be you can just turn it on and pair it, and it'll start driving.
Yeah, I'll show you. I tried for a few days to get this joystick working, and this is just a regular Bluetooth joystick, and it's supposed to pair, but I couldn't ever get it to work with the Raspberry Pi. So this one is a little bit different. It has its own like USB dongle. It's Bluetooth, but it has its own little USB dongle, so it won't be going through like the GPIOs or anything like that. I don't know what the effective range is on this also, because this will be in the Raspberry Pi in the box, and then I'll be driving around. But hopefully with the joystick, I'll be close enough to it.
What image are you running on the, well, let me get my head. You have two Raspberry Pis in the field, so to speak, right? You've got one on the rover and one in your pocket taking commands from the joystick?
Yeah, like if I'm gonna drive it in the back of my car or something or drive it around, I usually just grab the little Raspberry Pi and then walk around. But it's cumbersome. I have to have a battery pack, a Raspberry Pi, and then I have a wired joystick. So something like this, it's just wireless. I turn it on and then you can drive it. I think would be a lot easier.
What image are you running on your joystick Raspberry Pi?
The Ubiquiti. Figured easier to learn one and go with it. I um, do have the parts, though this part came off of there's a little um, Ubuntu, a little robot, it's a little ROS robot built on this kit. And this is just a ROS Robotics kit. This whole thing, you can make your own little ROS robot for like $100. And so this one actually uses Ubuntu Mate in through the tutorial if you use that tutorial. But it's a really nice tutorial. They've done an excellent job. This, if you can, like I was trying to figure out what is the progression. You know, like you just start out with a lawn tractor or a tractor, you're going to get swamped with so much. There's so many things to learn. But if we do it in stages, like if you can get this robot driving around with a joystick in ROS, that's a pretty good first step. And then you can move on to this and start to understand what goes into it. I haven't started it yet, but that's the goal.
Can you post a link to that robot?
Yeah.
And I didn't. Was that joystick controller? Was that separate? Or did that come with it? And if could you post a link to that one too, if it's handy?
Yep. I'll show it to you. You just buy them separately, and then there's a little tutorial to follow. It's phenomenal. It might take me a little bit to find it.
Again, this is one of those wonderful, you've bought it, but you haven't tried it yet things.
Yeah. So I need to go through it first, and then I can start recommending it.
I don't have any of those around the house where I pre-bought something and haven't used it. I absolutely don't buy anything until I'm ready for it.
Now I'm thinking about cannibalizing this kit to run on use the joystick controller. But yeah, awesome. We posted and talked about this a while ago, but he's redone the videos.
I'm sorry, did you post it?
Almost. So, coming in. Okay, there's the blog post. It uses Ubuntu Core, which is really fascinating. It's a cool setup that they have. And Kyle has done a tremendous job on the tutorial.
How do you say the name? Kyphora? Kyrofa?
Yeah, he's also part of the community, the Ross agriculture community. But it's a little bit different approach. But again, the idea is just you can set up, have your own robot, you can drive it around, you can learn ROS.
That's cool.
And that covers a pretty good way. Gets you there.
I'm still a little confused though. Is he selling the hardware or he's just blogging about it?
Just blogging about how to use ROS.
Hmm. So the EduKit, I found the link, never mind.
Yeah, it comes from camjam.me. Post the link to there. But he's got links to where you buy that. One of them, you get the joystick from Pi Hut, and then the other one is camjam.me EduKit.
I just opened up the CamJam deal. I don't see a base. It looks like parts without the.
So you use the box. Oops.
Oh,
So you have all of these motors, but then you basically just cut a hole in the side of the box and then drive the box around.
cool. That's like Google did with their. They had a couple of kits that they sold where they used the box.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you have like little wheels, two little motors. So it's a differential drive robot. Yeah, the ultrasonic sensor like we use, so you can do some testing. Little breadboard, battery pack, and then some little electronics. And then
Sweet.
you make your robot base is just the box. Pretty simple.
And they're using ROS.
Yep.
Well, are they using ROS or he's adding the Raspberry Pi on top of it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, but yeah. So in this tutorial, you use so you have to have your own Raspberry Pi and SD card, and then they put ROS on this. So
Yeah, got it.
just fun. There's yep.
The only something else going on in my world, I'll just share. It's less about robotics and more about cattle farming. So if you want to do rotational grazing for cattle, you need to do shade structures that are portable. There's a $14,000 solution made by an outfit in Wisconsin that you can pull around with an ATV. And then there is the DIY approach. The DIY approach at the moment is looking like $1,200 for 288 square feet of shade, which would have looks like basically 2.5-inch steel pipe on the bottom for a skid and 2-inch square tubing going up the sides and a shade cloth across the top. Now, I would like to figure out how to make that mobile at some point. So that's another use of robotics in a grass-fed cattle raising operation. Something like this comes to mind. I don't know if you can see that very well, but where you don't know if you can see these support arms, but if the weight was over here and the wheels and whatnot, the control structure was on one end, and there was enough mass there to protect it in 50 or 60 mile an hour winds from blowing over. But that would be another option if you put, especially if you could put water and feed in a trough that was on one end of it. The cattle would absolutely follow it around. They're going to follow it around if there's shade there anyway, but that's something else to for me to think about. So these guys that were using the electric wheels in the Slack channel and posting some videos around the, this four-wheeled machines that could maneuver, that another use case for those is movable shade for a cattle grazing operation. But more thoughts than time at the moment.
You think about adding tires to the sunshade?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the DIY approach is make it heavy so it doesn't blow around and drag it around with a tractor. That, is a solution, but not necessarily what I would prefer. My preference would be it following a path and automatically moved and safe, somehow safe in a wind situation where the water could be there as well, and a place for the periodic nutrients or something like that that you put out for cattle. So I just really need a robot. The use cases are pretty darn limitless.
Mm-hmm. But the driving through the field, A/B testing in March.
There you go. Speaking of such, things that I need to think about, to make it think back to your trip to Argentina. What are the things that I need to make sure are in place before anybody shows up, just to make sure it's productive? Thoughts come to mind?
Yeah, like if we knew the goal was to do like a A/B line or something, then start working backwards. Maybe there are some things that we can do beforehand.
I mean, are you intending to bring your operating machine?
No, we got yours. You're a robot.
It doesn't work right now, young man.
That's what then we need to figure out. Okay, like generally what I do is rank them by value and risk. So if we're not sure about something that may or may not work, then let's work on that. Hardening the system, I'm less concerned about. That's going to take a lot of work. So make sacrifices. TX1 or TX2 that cost around $600. If you want to buy a hardened one that's IP67 rated, it's $5,000.
What? Say that again? TX1 and TX2, what's that?
It's a NVIDIA is just a processing board we use sometimes. It's a ARM processor from NVIDIA, TX1, TX2. Just to give you an example of the amount of work it takes to get something environmentally sealed.
Yeah, I'm not, well, so to be clear, I don't have an environmentally sealed solution yet.
So what's not working, and then is there anything that we can we'll just list out the things that aren't working, and then some of the things we like at your ranch before, we just ran off of a cell phone. We did testing on a cell phone, run 100 feet lines, A/B testing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Super nice to have full Wi-Fi coverage. What's essential and what's nice to have. What do you want done there too?
Well, I'm still, I have a raw tractor. And so at the moment we're starting with a raw tractor. And then if I bring my one from Pittsburgh, I have a slightly less raw tractor, which I can do, but there's still a few issues to get resolved with that. So anyway, your request of make a list of things that are not working, that's a reasonable approach. You can do that.
And if the AB line goal is too much, then what would you feel happy about?
No, the AB line absolutely needs to be the goal. And I, before I spun another bolt off on my steering shaft, I was ready to do that with my Pittsburgh one. So I think the only thing holding that up is, well, the Pittsburgh one, it's about weld the shaft and get the GPS working with correction data. I would say are the two big things. I mean, because
to run an AB line, you don't need we need RTK corrections if your GPS jumps around. I'll show you a picture of like, maybe we have one.
Yeah, I can attest to the GPS will jump around.
Okay. So like on the F9P, it doesn't jump around.
Really?
Yep. But on the Swift nav, the ones we were using in Argentina, the Swift nav jumps around. So you can't use it without RTK. If you get heading that way. I mean, it jumps around. You're going to have to RTK.
So which one did you say doesn't jump around? The F9P?
The Simple F9P.
So if you sit that on your desk and walk away from it and come back in an hour,
yep. So,
what's the span of distance that will have moved?
Yes, absolutely, it moves. Let's say, I have no idea, but I'll give you 6 inches or a foot or something, let's just say.
But that's all the farther it moves.
Yeah, sure. Jeff's done a lot of tests. We have a lot of data on them. But okay, so like this is maybe in the vocabulary like this is just like if you don't have RTK, your GPS is going to drift throughout the day, right? From day to day, it'll move around. You won't be able to get back to the exact same spot on the Earth.
No, I get that. But in an hour, sitting still,
yeah,
what's the distance between the two furthest points that
I don't know, 6
logs.
I don't know. I'd have to, Jeff has a lot of that data. A static GPS test with the F9P without RTK.
Right offhand, I don't know. But if you just sit there and watch it on the screen, it will just constantly wander around if you don't give it correction data. But let me back up. There was two different terms here. Matt was talking about the thing jumping, and now we're talking about wandering. So the wandering is, yeah, it will just kind of, it slowly wanders around. And as Al says, if you put it there and come back an hour later, how far has it wandered? But Matt is talking about the fact when he says jump, it says right here, and all of a sudden it says now you're 3 feet from where you were. And that will screw up things, is what he was talking about. And whether or not your receiver does that is the issue, I guess.
So that builds on the heading. That you have to get heading, and so the best and the easiest one I think out there today is that Ardu Simple with heading, dual GPS.
But I would not rush out and buy yet another set of GPS based on this conversation. I'd say try to get your thing running first, and then decide if you're going to invest in yet more GPS stuff you're never going to use.
Nobody would do that.
To be blunt about it. So right now, if you just want to drive your AB line, whether you have correction data or not, if you point the thing in the right direction and you say go, it's going to start tracking based on the GPS. If the GPS is wandering around or even jumps, it's still going to work. You know, if you're driving, say, 100 feet, it's still going to get you there. It may not be as straight or as smooth as you would like, but that should still, you know, just a single GPS with no correction should work. Is my thought.
And trust me, I've lived through that. I mean, but the outcome of that is a device that's constantly doing this to get back to what it knows as the right heading. But anyway, I digress. A list of things that are not working. So to me, the things that are not working at the moment is steering shaft needs to be welded, and the GPS needs to be hooked up in a rover base station manner with getting corrections from the base station. All that fitting in my Harbor Freight Pelican case deal.
So why is it your steering keeps breaking?
Well, it's broken twice, and the rod that was through the shaft and the U-joint was like an 1/8 inch thick. So, meaning I was constantly, oftentimes without moving, which is sort of the high torque situation, you know, turning left and turning right, and that 1/8 inch bolt sheared.
Is it that, or you're running it up against the hard stop of the steering, which definitely would put a lot of force on it?
Yeah, so I never, to my knowledge, I never spent any time at all, you know, banging it up against the frame. And sort of to prevent that, you know, my fuses were fused out at, I don't know, the first one 5 amps, maybe 20 amps. I mean, there's very low amperage going through the motor.
The other thing you could consider is putting a different type of bolt in there. So when you say a bolt, it's just a standard cheap, whatever the cheapest bolt is you can buy. Right. And I don't know if stainless steel is any less prone to shear off, or when you buy bolts, you can get like grade 3 and grade 5 and grade 8 bolts. And again, I don't know what the difference is, if they're hardened or if it's a better quality of steel or whatever, but just simply put a better bolt in there that'd be the quickest thing. Just stop at the hardware store tonight and get the same size bolt, but get one that's say the grade 8 and put in there. and run it like that.
Yeah, we're definitely talking about off-the-shelf Home Depot zinc, zinc metal, not hardened, not stainless steel.
Yeah. Whatever the cheapest bolts are you can buy. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's what I use for most of my stuff. But that might be a something you can do right there. Just simply put a different type of bolt in there before you go to all the trouble of welding it. And if you're going to weld it anyway, you can go ahead and do that. But I'm just thinking that'd be something quicker to get you going again, and then you can see how long that's going to last. And it could be that would be more than adequate, just putting a better bolt in there.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of what's available at Home Depot. Is stainless steel harder than zinc?
Yeah, and that I don't know. I suppose a Google search, I'm sure lots of people are asking that same question. And the problem is if you go to somewhere like Home Depot or wherever and try to get a better quality 1/8-inch bolt, it may be hard to find. You know, just buying small bolts in general is hard to find at these places, but then trying to get a better quality one might be an issue too. 1/8 inch, is that like a number 6 or is that like a number 8 bolt, or do you know right offhand?
Yeah, I think it was a number 8, actually.
I know at those kind of places that see like number 6 is the smallest they will sell. So if you want number 4, you have to go somewhere else. I go to my local hardware store. They usually have a better selection there than Home Depot does. But I've noticed even the Home Depot has, if you look around through their little bins of, you know, custom stuff, you can find smaller stuff. Now, whether or not you can get the harder steel, standard steel bolts in that size, I don't know. And then again, you know, somebody should go on Google and find out if stainless steel is better than regular steel for say shear strength.
Yeah, McMaster, I mean, they're pretty timely. I think it only takes 4 or 5 days to get something from McMaster, so they would probably have hardened stuff.
Well, that's just a thought rather than going ahead and welding the thing. That would give you something to try out, and then you could also find out if just putting a different type of bolt in there solves your problem. And that's just a thought that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, if you have a situation where the steering bang up against a hard stop, because as you say, sitting there at no forward speed is the worst torque. Well, actually, if you bang into something, that's even worse because your motor's trying to drive and it's got nowhere to go. So that will start shearing stuff off at that point.
Yeah, I think it was just there was just a little bit of, you know, so let's just say it was a number 8 bolt and the size of the hole was for a slightly larger bolt. I mean, there was a little bit of give there, right? And so over time, it's just going to wear it down.
Yeah.
So Matt used a pin. I don't know what sort of pin he used.
I broke them off and ended up using a bigger bolt, and I haven't broke it since.
Any recollection what size bolt you put through your shaft?
I don't know, but I'd have to go look. I think it's actually a pin, a roll pin, 1/8-inch roll pin. But I can take a picture of it and send it to you.
And then you actually went and got the proper joint that connects up to a steering motor right out of a car.
Yes, I got the joint that the electric power steering connects to. That's really helpful. It was $15, and it was totally worth it.
You harvested that yourself from a car, right?
Yeah, I just cut it off with an angle grinder. And amazingly, the shaft that goes down into the transmission is the exact diameter of the lawn tractor shaft, the steering. So it fits perfectly. And then I just drilled it, put a roll pin for the connector piece because you don't have the teeth around the lawn tractor shaft because you have to cut it off. but it just bolts right together.
Cool.
And having that U-joint there, you don't have to mount it very accurately. It takes a lot of stress off of the system.
Yeah, I have a U-joint. It's just not the Saturn U-joint.
You can go to a U-Pull-It, grab it. That's something like I could go to U-Pull-It today and get one, you know? Those are the things that would be handy if we need those parts just to bring them, you know, just prep all that stuff.
Okie dokie. I don't know of a U-Pull-It place around here, but I can look. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, well, I was wondering about your encoders. The speed encoders, are those working okay?
Mm-hmm. I mean, they were the last time that I used them. Are you still using the induction guys with the gear?
Yeah. So the sensors that I'm using is just those pickup sensors for the wheel speed, potentiometer for the steering, and then heading is a big issue. So I've been getting heading off of the GPS, and then it works if you're going pretty fast, like over like 0.5 meters per second. If you're going slow, then it can jump around a little bit on you. So we will need GPS and heading.
Back on the odometry, I don't think I ever tried to source the gears that you were using or figured out how you actually got gears attached to your axles. I mean, I certainly have the induction devices that I can bring, but where did you get your gears, and what size were they, and do you have a URL for those?
Yeah, that's on the bill of materials for the lawn tractor. It's basically just a set screw around the shaft, so it's a 3/4 inch shaft, and then you can get whatever gear you want, and then you just weld those together. I just JB welded them, and I can send you the links on that. That's a redundant sensor basically for speed.
So it's not critical because you just use speed off of the GPS?
You can, yeah. Yeah. I'll give you I'll show you what if you fire up your GPS, here's what we saw with the SwiftNav. This is why we tried to get heading from the GPS. So you take what your current point is and then your next point, and then you can get your heading as you're moving around. Right? Pretty simple. So here's our attempt at getting heading from the GPS. This is just driving forward, trying to take those 2 dots and then getting your heading from there.
Doesn't look very good.
No, that's with the SwiftNav. So the SwiftNav without RTK, very jumpy. So like one way to test is when you bring your GPS up, just do exactly like you're doing. I mean, if your GPS is wobbling around like that, then calculating that point is going to move around all the time on you.
Right.
So then you get into the IMU where we're trying to use the magnetometer for heading, and that one can be a little sketchy, but it could be useful. I use it if I'm going below 0.4 meters per second or going backwards, then I use the IMU. Otherwise, for heading, I use the GPS.
So I know it's just a backup thing, but I'm looking at what I think is your bill of material.
Yep.
When I see the encoder.
A little bit up, there's a wheel gear and hub. It's line 32. So these gears and the center shaft, you can interchange them. So I got I think it was like 5/8 or 3/4 inch hub. Over on line F, you can, or column F, you can see the link to both of those.
Okay, cool.
So I got a 32 6-inch gear and then a 3/4 inch hub, and then they go together. And then there's just a set screw on that hub. A set screw goes down into your shaft on the lawn tractor. That's what holds it steady.
Okay. Lots to do.
On that steering angle, how comfortable are you on that steering angle measurement running around in a field?
I'm not, because I haven't, really tested it in anger. So the whole potentiometer thing that you've done is a potential as well that we'd have to use. So, I mean, to me, it's going to be, I should have a plan A and a plan B, and irrespective of which one is A or B, the Teensy across, the Teensy magnetic sensor is clearly an option, but how durable it is, I'm not sure. What makes you ask?
That one's critical.
Mm.
To drive autonomously.
What did you use in Argentina?
Same, three-turn potentiometer. I think my lawn tractor, I think the lawn tractor is a turn and a half, is lock to lock. So I went with a 3-turn to get more resolution there.
Was the one in Argentina, did they run off that big gear at the bottom, or did they stick it on top of the motor?
On top, on the motor, on the motor, electric power steering motor shaft.
And how far, I mean, have you spoken to them recently?
Yeah, this morning. Yeah, this morning.
And that's still in place?
Yes, but now, yes, yes. The requirements, so you have to take a look at the requirements. The requirements is, 15-minute autonomous mission. So design criteria was a little different. Right now, heading is the issue, and odometry. Yep. Takes a little bit of work to understand how all that comes together. Localization is hard. If you have clear skies, like in Texas, you have clear skies, and you're not under trees, GPS is really nice. It tells you exactly where you are. That's phenomenal. There's just a lot of edge cases where GPS has problems.
Okay.
So things like wiring up a box, for example, like I didn't do this, but when I was down, I should have taken like a box with everything together with like a connector end. All that stuff can be soldered up and the boards can be all mounted and everything ready to go.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to get to with my Pelican case.
It's cool.
So now my head's spinning with a million things that need to be done.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, guys. I'm going to go scream into a closet.
No. Piece by piece.
Yeah.
And if you want that joint, I'm going to Spokane today. I can stop by a shop and see if they have yours is a Saturn. I had a Cobalt. I don't know if it's the same motor.
I'm about 80% confident that the eBay listing said mine was a Saturn.
Saturn View, something. What year, by chance?
Oh, heavens.
Okay.
08 maybe? I don't, I mean, I can pull up my eBay history and see what they might have said. I wasn't really fussed about what year. I just, give me a motor. Purchase history. Come on. No, I don't want to confirm my account.
Taylor said he's using an IP65 potentiometer, a 10 turn from DigiKey, so that might be a better option.
I think the 3-turn would give you better resolution, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but yeah, maybe there's a IP65 3-turn that's $25.
So is there a way to search history without having to scroll through every?
And did you want to build two robots, or should we get or are you focused on getting the one that you have now running?
I'm hopefully going to have all the parts and everything needed for both. I'm glad you asked. This motor, come on.
Typically on eBay, when you go to your history, it'll say, do you want to see for the last 6 months, or do you want to see for all of 2018, all of 2019? So you click on all of whatever year, and then you should be able to do a search from there, I would think. So
yeah, I was just trying to open up. I was just trying to open this up, and it failed. But it says 05, 2011 Chevy Cobalt. Actually, I think I have 2. Hell, I might even have 3, and one is Saturn.
We'll put one on your gate.
Yeah.
Let the robot in and out.
See, when I think they got rid of that. They don't let me go back to the details, but Cobalt, Chevy Cobalt.
Okay.
Okay, gents.
I had another question. When you run your GPS stuff, you say you're going to get back to it like next week or sometime. Do you regularly save log files as you're doing that? Is there a way on the, either if you're running their software, because you're asking about how much does it wander around and so forth. The way you can figure that out yourself, just put the thing out there and turn it on and you let it run for however long. And if you're saving the log files, you can go back and plot those out. And their software may even let you pull up a log file and replay it. Or I know at one point you had a screen up that showed the ground plot, and you could just simply turn on and watch that. So as it, zoom out enough, you can say over 6 hours, does it wander around by 3 feet or 10 feet or whatever? You should be able to see that just by watching the software that you have.
Yeah, so as far as log files go, I've not really tried to log either through their OEM software or through, say, ROS. But just visually, they give you a map view. My antennas are never moving. Well, not never, but typically they're just out on the back porch. And so it gives you the plot, but I'll look to see if the OEM software has a logging and playback function.
Yeah, just watching that plot that it gives you, if you just zoom out a ways and let it sit there for several hours, you can watch it wander around and see how much it does that. So, without using your correction data, with and without correction data, you can see that. So with correction data, it should be, a very small grouping, and then just turn that off. And then you will see, even as you sit there watching, you'll notice it just starts wandering around. And then the question is, how far off does that get? So that would give you an idea right there.
Yeah, generally speaking, anecdotally, it's without correction data, it's 2 meters, from left extreme to right extreme or up or down extreme. And with correction, and I'm getting deflection from the house, I'm sure, because the antennas aren't very far away from the side of the house. But with correction data, it's 10 centimeters, something like that. So the hope is when I don't have to deal with deflection from the house, it's going to be better at the bases. That clear sky and full sky, and as well as the rover. But logging that, I've not.
Sometimes it's handy to turn on the logging. You can come back later and pull the data up and look at it to see what it was doing, so you can answer questions like that. So just the fact that you've saved it, whether you do anything with it at the time or not, if there's just a way to automatically create log files as it runs, then you come back later and pull them up and see what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll look.
And then another question for Matt. When you're down in Venezuela with that other lawn tractor and they're using the Swift Nav, do you know if they upgraded the firmware from whatever they got it at, or is it still running at whenever they took it out of the box?
Really good question. I think it did get upgraded. Pretty sure. I'm not totally sure.
Okay. Because it's been so long since I played with the Swift Nav, I can't remember if it would, if it would jump on me like you're talking about, and if it had to do with whether it had correction data or not, whether it was doing that. So, but I remember when we first got ours that it didn't seem to work very well, and then after several updates, it did work a lot better. And then they got to the point where it gets up to version 2.0, and that's where they locked everything down. And it looks like if you load anything newer than the 2.0, you can't back up to the previous stuff, which if you're just going to take it out of the box and use it, that shouldn't be a big deal. But if you want to try to go into the Linux and rewrite your some of the code or create your own applications for it, you can't do that after a certain version. But most people don't want to do that anyway. So I'm just curious, if, what condition theirs was in when you're running, when you said that it had some problems.
Yep. When we fed it RTK, then it was able to lock in. Correction.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Well, have a great weekend, and let's see you guys.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.